What is up, guys? It is the Scarlet Duelist back again with yet another deck profile that I am confident calling pretty good. So this is a pure Red Eyes build. This, just to keep expectations healthy, I made this as competitive as I can physically get it. But unfortunately, Red Eyes is just not one of those decks right now that has crazy support and allows it to compete with the current meta. So I'm not saying that you can never win a duel against the meta, but I'm not saying that I would expect this to be a top tier deck above Orchest. Like, it's just crazy. It's not. But it's really fun to play. Wow, it got really dark in here. I'm going to turn up the brightness. It is really fun to play. And if you are just curious about how does the pure build of Red Eyes work, it works like this, and I'm hoping that I can use this and a follow-up video that I'm going to make later on to kind of point out to Konami that they need to give this deck some love, because Red Eye's alternative was a huge disappointment, to be honest, for a number of reasons. It does nothing for Red Eyes that Blue Eyes alternative does for Blue Eyes, which is really disappointing. The only thing that it really does is speed up the deck a little by allowing for a free level 7 monster and just like a free Red Eyes name to maybe use Red Eyes Fang with Chain, which is not enough, as most of you know, to really compete. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be made into a tier 1 strategy, but the ability to have coherent support would be really nice, which Red Eyes does lack a little bit. But hey, I did my best with it. It took a lot of experimenting, and I think that this is a really fun deck to play if you just want to enjoy playing Red Eyes in its pure form. No guard dragons, no Dragon Link, just pure Red Eyes. The last thing that I'm going to say before I begin the profile is that I do use proxies. So when you see those, I don't want that to be a surprise, but let me clarify really quickly how I use the proxies. I absolutely do not just print out cards instead of buying them. I only print out a card that I actually own, and I also only allow myself to use the number of proxies in a deck that I actually already own. So for example, if I only have one real copy of Pot of Desires, I am only allowed one proxy of Pot of Desires in another deck. The real reason that I do that, to be honest, guys, is to keep myself from having to move cards around from deck to deck to deck to deck. Like, I don't want to buy 17 copies of Called by the Grave just because a lot of my decks need it. So that's just something I do because I mostly play with friends. They do the same thing. If that offends you, okay, get over it. No, but like, I mean, yes, definitely get over it. That shouldn't be an issue. That to me is the same thing as, honestly, like, people who have to have max rarity of a card. Like, it's cool if that's what you like, but also if I don't do that, that doesn't mean anything. So I say that because I know a lot of people, small and big YouTubers, kind of pride themselves on never using proxies. But it's like, okay, it doesn't really matter to me all that much. If it matters to you, I guess don't watch this video. But there you go. We're going to start with the deck profile. I keep having to change my brightness here just because the sun's pouring in and out. I do not have professional lighting because we want to keep this channel humble. We want to keep it at just pretty good level. We've got 3 Red Eyes alternative because it speeds the deck up. I've seen people play this at 1. I would question the logic in that because you do want to see it because it's your easiest summon. If even you see 2, you can pitch 1 to summon the other, and there you go. So this card's really good. Definitely run it at 3 if you're playing the pure form. Then we've got 2 Red Eyes B-Dragon. I think I just did a thing where I said this is really good. What I mean is it's good for what it is. It's not really good, but, you know, here we are. We have what we have. And we've got 2 of the vanilla Red Eyes because you do need them for certain plays, but you don't want it at 3 simply because it can be a brick. You don't want a brick. It's not fun to brick with this deck because you'll straight up pass. It doesn't happen often. I've tested it enough. You do not brick often, but when you do, man, does it suck. So that's a thing. Then we've got Red Eyes Black Flare at 2 for the same reason that we have the vanilla Red Eyes at 2. Again, you can use it as a target for things, but you don't necessarily want to, like, how do I say this? It's not something that you want to start top decking, so that's why we keep it at 2. Then we've got, for the same reason, 2 Red Eyes Retro. So this is cool because it acts as a hand trap. If your Red Eyes monsters are destroyed, this brings them back and kind of keeps you from dying, which you need because a lot of these new decks can outpower you. This deck is just unfortunately a little bit stuck in 2016, but What's cool too about it though is it can also be used as the thing that you tribute. I think one thing that people are, um, I've heard some people say this and they're wrong. You do not have to tribute a level 7 Red Eyes in your hand. You just need to tribute a Red Eyes monster, either from your hand or field. So Red Eyes Retro can be really good for that reason, because if you want to keep maybe you're down to your last level 7 Red Eyes and you need to play it a different way, there you go. Use Retro instead. Also, it's there as a protection. It can be used as banish fodder and so on. There's a lot of utility for it. This is probably the first thing you'll banish off a lure. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm still getting past a cold. It also has some utility with a tech choice that I'll talk about in a moment, where it tributes itself. And when you hear the word tribute, you can probably guess what I've thrown in as a tech option. But yeah, pretty cool. Then we've got 3 Black Metal Dragon, just because you really want to see this card as well. It allows for your Slash Dragon to have an interruption, and it's also a search card. If you link it off with Link Karibo, or you link it off another way, or it becomes material for something else. So Black Metal, really, really good, and it's not once per turn. You don't often get to use this twice, because that tends to only happen in the Guard Dragon build, but yeah, you just want to maximize on it. We got 1 Red Eyes Darkness, just because this does fix your hand if you have it and you land on something like this and Retro but nothing else, or no other ways to special summon. Then you can bring out those, get them out of there, use Red Eyes Darkness and so on, and continue with your plays. But yeah, it's only at 1 because it's searchable and it's all we're allowed. So there you go. Then we have, this is what I was talking about, 1 Diabolos, Lord of the Lair. It's a little tough to see in this lighting, so I'll up the brightness just a little bit. But so this is really good because you have a lot of tributing effects in this deck now. The way it operates is you can tribute your Red Eyes monsters on the field or in your hand. And if you tribute one on the field and this guy's in your grave or in your hand, if you see it, this comes out and you can use it further to rip a card from your opponent's hand, or just be a big body that's hard to deal with on the board. And you can also bring this out using our Heavenly Spheres. If you interrupted your opponent enough and they won't have a way to out it in the end, then you can still use this, tribute it off, rip a card, and then steal some card advantage from your opponent that way. Then we've got as also a 1, Amorphage Goliath, also just as another target for spheres. If you use that, you want to be able to use it to its fullest potential. So bringing out something that's going to stop your opponent even further is really nice. Even if they out it, you've made them out it. So like that's coming with that's one of those plays you have to think through. If you've ever heard the term "make them have it," that's what that means. Like, for example, if I use spheres, I interrupted them, but they were still going to do something else after that. If I bring this out, then I'm going to make them use what removal they have first, or have to battle me first before they can start trying to continue to make their board. So that's what that's what make them have it means. Then we've got 1 Blackstone of Legend, 1 Rocket Synchron, and 1 The Phantom Knights of Silent Boots. I know I said pure. I have a couple cards that are in here as tech choices just to help the pure build thrive, without turning them into Link spam and Guard Dragon rocket craziness. So I know it's a rocket card, but this is not Red Eyes Rockets. Allow me to explain. We've got the Blackstone of Legend because you can, it's a decent normal summon, but even more than 1 is weird. So I have it at 1 because I can 1-for-1 it, or if I see it, great. And you can tribute that to bring out a level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster from the deck. And also it shuffles 1 back and comes back to your hand. So you can recur a little bit to keep some card advantage there. And then it tributes, so that's potential to bring out your Diabolos. Then we've got Rocket Synchron. This has some pretty good utility as well. You can bring it out with 1-for-1 or normal summon it, and then it brings back one of your level 5 or higher dragons. And then you can synchro into what I have in the extra deck as Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend, but you can substitute that for anything you like. And yeah, it becomes a really good play in that way. It's some options for you. Then we've got the Phantom Knights of Silent Boots. It is our Garnet as material for our Red Eyes Slash, because it has utility after that. I know a lot of people like to use the Red Eyes Gearfried, but it's such a brick and such a bad card. Red Eyes Gearfried and Red Eyes Baby have no business being in a Red Eyes deck, to be honest. They just don't do anything for you on your turn, really. It's just, I don't know, it's not cohesive the way that those work, and they're way overpriced for what they do. So I would highly recommend just ditching those, throwing in these, and then also a Silent Boots, because then you make your Slash, right? And then there's potential that you've already seen Fang with Chain, or black metal dragon. So you equip that to it, and if it's Fang, that's 3 interruptions. If it's black, it's at least an additional interruption, because you're also going to use this to search for a fog blade, and which is your 3rd interruption or 2nd interruption. So that's something to build a board that's at least somewhat hard for your opponent to play, because that's one of the 3 things that I feel like Red Eyes does struggle with. One of them is making something that's hard for your opponent to deal with. Unfortunately, Red Eyes can just, when it does get crazy combos, it combos into nothing. And so we're trying to change that. We're making a little more control. Like I said, you're not going to play solitaire and combo off for 20 minutes. But yeah, you can do some things and then create control of the board. So it's definitely more of a control build in that sense. Let's move on to the spells. I've ranted enough. Next, we've got Called by the Grave at 3, because you don't have things that are susceptible to every hand trap. Like when I think of Dragon Link, that's the one thing, is it's excuse me, it's so open to every hand trap. Like it's so susceptible to every hand trap. Red Eyes here, really the major one that sucks is Ash Blossom. So when you get ashed, it hurts. That's why we've got Called at 3. And on occasion, if your opponent's going to use other hand traps, you've got this too. And you can even stop things that are not hand traps. So again, it's like another interruption. It's nice. Then we've got 2 Allure of Darkness for consistency. You can banish things like maybe an extra copy of Black Metal or Red Eyes Retro. So that's nice. You want to keep your deck consistent, see things. Then we've got 2 Cards of the Red Stone. 3 is a brick. Yeah. Even though I'm running, I think, 10 or 11 Red Eyes monsters, I think only 7 of them are level 7. So I think that's something that you need to keep in mind when you choose how many of this card you put in. Because you can only use it once per turn. Sometimes you see it without the Red Eyes. It's a high risk, high reward card, but the reason it's in here is because it's probably the best draw power card you can put in a Red Eyes deck, because you get to send additionally after you draw 2. So the rewards are very nice. It's just, it kind of sucks, if it gets ashed or whatever, which is, again, why we have Called by the Grave. Then we've got 2 Return of the Dragon Lords. Once again, we got a lot of 2s in this, just because 3 of some of these cards that allow this deck to operate can be major bricks, and you don't want that to happen. Bricking's not fun. So this is really good to just continue making some better plays and then have some protection in the graveyard. Unfortunately, the deck shows its age with using this card, though, because a lot of the meta strategies use non-targeting, non-destruction removal. And this does not protect you from that. So something to keep in mind, that's just the way it is. It's what we have right now. Then we've got 2 Super Poly. We've got lots of targets in the extra deck that we can use with this. And this does push the deck into a little bit more competitive of a scene. Like I was going against Orcust online with this, and I actually Super Poly'd their field and won. So there are times when you can take some wins. Like I said, I'm not saying the deck can't ever beat a meta deck. You got to see the right stuff, and it's not as consistent. So yeah, Super Poly, really good, really pushes the deck further. I think it pushes a lot of decks further. Now, I don't think it's a fair card, but while it's legal, we're going to play it. Then we've got 2 Red Eyes Insight. Once again, this is a brick at 3, because you're going to run out of things to send and things to search very quickly in this deck. It does that a lot. So you don't want to be top decking a Red Eyes Insight mid-game, because again, you're playing control. You're not going to OTK your opponent out of the blue. You're playing control here. You don't want to top deck Red Eyes Insight when you have no targets. That's a major bummer. So that's something to keep in mind. These are cards that you want to see when you want to see them. Then you've got 1 Red Eyes Fusion. Again, it shows its age. Like I said, it's a ridiculous restriction on Red Eyes Fusion. If you use it at all, you can't play any other monsters, and if you played any other monsters, you can't use it, which I think is silly, but hey, that's based on the time period it was made in. So we have 1 because occasionally we can make a slash with a couple interruptions and take the game that way by stopping our opponent. Then we've got 1 for 1 to bring out all those level 1s that we use as utility cards, and finally Dragon's Mirror to make some of our other fusion monsters by reusing some resources that we've pitched to the graveyard, which is really, really nice. Finally, we'll get to our traps, which is how we keep control of the game, honestly. A lot of these so far have been ways to get out monsters. Now you're going to see, how do we control the field? Well, hopefully we see at least one copy of our Dragon's Bind. This stops your opponent from playing a lot of the time, especially actually, I don't know why I said especially because that didn't really make any sense. I said the wrong word. Imagine that, right? Um, I think across the board, Rogue and Competitive need to get out cards first that have 2,500 or less attack in order to build their boards. So this is a really oppressive card because you're going to equip it to a Red Eyes, right? And it has 2,400, which means they're not allowed to special summon monsters with less than that. That's going to be really tough. Now, they can normal summon, sure, but what are they going to do? You know what I mean? So that's pretty cool. Unless they're a tribute summoning deck, like if you're going against Monarchs, maybe they can pull it out, but nobody else is going to do that. So it's really tough. Now, yes, there's removal out there and whatever. You can experiment with maybe cards like Mana Dragon Zernatron. It can bring it back. I personally don't run it just because it's so dependent on what my opponent's going to do. But yeah, if you want to, try that. But this is a really oppressive card, and it allows you to slow your opponent down, which is really nice. Then we've got some of our one-offs here. We've got Red Eyes Fang, Return of the Red Eyes, and Red Eyes Spirit. This is your key searchable interruption, so you want to go for that as soon as you can because it steals your opponent's card on their turn, and if you don't end up having to use it, it also allows one of your Red Eyes monsters to attack twice. So that's pretty nice. That does allow for some major damage and a push for game. Return of the Red Eyes is nice because it's recursion. It allows you to recover your Red Eyes monsters each of your turns. Now, it's unusual, I know, in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! To anticipate beyond like turn 3, but we're attempting to play control here, so there's a good chance you'll last until then, or hopefully, and you can keep bringing your things back. Now, I have Red Eyes Spirit because it's a target for Red Eyes Insight, but also sometimes you need this over this. Like if you don't think you're going to end on a Red Eyes card, because you have to have one in order to play this one, search this, and then you can bring out your Red Eyes, and then you can use either Dragon's Bind on it, or your Red Eyes Fang with Chain, or both. So that's something to keep in mind, and that's why I have Red Eyes Spirit. I notice a lot of people overlook this one and decide not to use it, but I think it's still really important for those times when you don't end on an optimal board. Like, what are you going to do, you know? Finally, our last card is our searchable Phantom Knights of Fogblade. I said of, there's no word of in there. Sorry. Gosh, the light keeps changing. Sorry about that, guys. I keep on trying to change the brightness with the sunlight that keeps pouring in here. Like I said, we don't have professional lighting. We try to keep it just pretty good. We don't want it to be too awesome. See, I added some camera shake just for emphasis on that. Excuse me. Phantom Knights, Fogblade, like I said, it's a good interruption, searchable by your Silent Boots. And even if you just open on it, you've got another interrupting card. So that's it for the main deck. We'll talk about the extra and the side, and then we'll call it a day. All right, so we'll start with the top. We'll start with the fusions. I think I said stop instead of start. Whoops. We've got one World Chalice Guard Dragon Almarduke. That's really hard to say. Then we've got First of the Dragons and Borreload Furious Dragon. So these two I tend to make with Dragon's Mirror, but on occasion you can make them with Super Poly also. World Chalice Guard Dragon Almarduke is a Super Poly target, so if your opponent links like crazy, if they have 3 link monsters, you can just get rid of them with Super Poly, make this bad boy, and then go crazy. So it's really, really nice to have. I think people underestimate this card for sure. Yes, it's dependent on what your opponent has, but in today's game, that's not that unlikely. People make 3 link monsters all the time when they're trying to build into things. So it's definitely really good against those rogue decks that like have to combo 35 times to get to an board. But yeah, even against some of the meta, it's pretty good. Then we've got Starving Venom Fusion, just another Super Poly target, and it got dark again. Again, like I said, it stops a lot of the dark decks out there. I used this against Orcust and beat them, so pretty cool. Then finally, our last fusion, Red Eyes Slash Dragon. We make this with Red Eyes Fusion. Then we can use our Silent Boots to search another interruption and so on. It's pretty good. I really like it. The other fusions are kind of garbage, to be honest. They don't really do anything. And they require you to run some major bricks, which is why I've left them out. Then we've got one Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend. We use this with our Rocket Synchron because we can, there's 2 chances we see it in our deck. And the reason that we use this over some others is sometimes we're going to end up going second. We're not going to win every die roll. We're not going to get that oppressive, lockdown with Dragon's Bind. So what we will try to do, excuse me, is blow up their board. So it's good for those occasions. If you don't like it though, if you don't like this, you can definitely throw in whatever level 8 Dark Synchro you like. I've also purchased the Tenyu one. I'm going to experiment with that. But if you have Borreload Savage, that's also an option. It's just a little less, it's got a little less utility because we don't link off like crazy. And then, you wouldn't really be, it'd become a vanilla if you don't have a link monster to attach to it. So this one's a really solid choice and it's very inexpensive. Then we've got 1 Draco Sack, 1 Flare Metal, and 1 Big Eye. These all have their time. This is for when we want to link the heck up. This is for when we're like, all right, we're doing really well. We've got our Red Eyes board established. We've got an extra Red Eyes though, so we're going to become Flare Metal and inflict some burn damage, and then it can't be destroyed, right? So really good, and it brings back a vanilla Red Eyes, so then you can still have that play open for Dragon's Bind. And then Big Eye is, if you want to steal your opponent's monster, there you go. Then we've got Borreload. Whoa, dropped a card. Topologic Bomber and Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. Most of the time, I will make this because it's really easy to make. But occasionally, if I can combo the heck off, if I'm going second, I'll make Borreload and try and steal something. If I'm going first and I'm comboing the heck off, I'm going to make a Topologic Bomber and then bring back a Red Eyes on my opponent's turn and then blow up their field at the right time. So that's something to consider. But again, I think the most effective interruption is probably going to be Spheres because you bounce and then you bring out an Amorphage Goliath. I don't know why I'm taking these off. I didn't do that with the whole other profile, but for some reason I'm doing it now. Sorry, what am I doing? Then we've got Cleafort Genius, Link Spider, and Link Karibo. This is for when we make Draco Sack. We can open up some zones and do some cool plays with that and just have it as link material. Link Spider is also for when we use Draco Sack. You want to be able to turn at least one of those tokens into a Link Spider so that it's an effect monster. And then finally Link Karibo so that we can quickly link off Black Metal Dragon if we don't have any other plays, search out a Red Eyes card, and keep going. So that's it for the extra deck. And now we will talk a little bit about the side. So right now we're optimized for going first. And the side deck is really some other cool strategies for going second. So I've got a Foolish Burial. I know that's weird because you're like, that's not a side deck card. I'm not talking for really side decking specific matches right now. These are honestly things that I'm like, I could throw this in instead to help my deck go better against whatever. So it's not, if I were going to like a competitive event, I might pick some new choices based on what I think I will see there. But because this is a very general video, that's really hard to determine right now. So Foolish Burial, Dark Grepher, Destiny Hero Plasma, and Destiny Hero Shadow Mist, I think is a fun package for going second. Because I can find a way to get these sent to the graveyard, send this, search this, and hopefully spam out enough where I can special summon him and lock down. Because if I'm just inherently special summoning and I have enough monsters that I can tribute, he just shut down their whole board. So that's really nice. I know some of you are like, that's too much of a long shot not doing it. That's fine, but I thought it was a fun play because this is a fun deck, so do what you want to do. Then we've got 3 Ash because, going second, really hard to play with a deck like this. And a lot of these are just going second cards. And we've got Mind Control, Twin Twister, we have Dino Wrestler Pankratops, and then finally, just as something that we can definitely use, we've got Eradicator Epidemic Virus. So now, here's something that I think I've heard a lot of people be like, nobody talks about what they'll side in and out. So let me talk about that for a little bit. If I'm going to go second, and I know my opponent's just going to be like, I don't know, I'll make him go second, I'm probably going to minimally throw in Ash and Mind Control. If I know they've got oppressive cards that are going to stop me from playing, that's when I might consider going in more of 2s, maybe ditch the Mind Control, and then throw in some more removal with Dino Wrestler and Twin Twister. That's not even on camera. Wow. How about I look? So like I said, going second minimally, 3 Ash, 2 Mind Control. Then if I need to remove things, Twister and Pankratops. Now, again, if they're just going to build a board that's like crazy oppressive, that's when I might go for the Shadow Mist and Burial play. That could really be first or second. It's just going to be something that they're not expecting. So kind of a smoke screen play. And then if I know that I can end games using this card, I'm going to do that. Because I can easily get to Red Eyes Fusion, make a slash, and then if I see this, there we go. I just shut down Striker and, you know, other cards that are really dependent on spells or traps. So something to consider. Like I said, these are things that I threw in kind of just as, I don't know, I guess this could be the side. So if you're going to a competitive event, though, you're going to want to rethink everything for what you think you will see there. There is no one and done. And I think that's why a lot of people don't talk about it very much, because it's really hard to gauge what you should side. There's really no one right answer to that. So yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. It's been real. This is Red Eyes Pure. Hopefully you enjoyed it. This looks really attractive right here. So really enjoy that. All right. If you liked the video, give it a like, subscribe, and see ya.